going back as far as the 70s, there is a history of film and movie production here in Gibsons. And we kind of thought maybe that would be a fun thing to reminisce a little bit about the different shows and films that have been shot in Gibsons and maybe places that you didn't even realize were Gibsons.
Yeah, and on the Sunshine Coast as well in general.
Right. Yeah, in general, for sure.
Yeah.
I think if we're talking about film and TV on the Sunshine Coast, the very first one, like the OG, is the Beachcombers, which ran from 72 to 90. The town, I think, in part was its existence to that show. It really put us on the map. And I think it provided just as far as the town is concerned, a lot of employment for a lot of years. And then still, even 30, 35 years later, it's still a lot of notoriety.
What was nice about the Beachcombers is it's about the area. It wasn't a show that was filmed here but pretended to be somewhere else. Like it was about Gibsons. It was about the Lower Sunshine Coast. It was about, the employment going on here and people in the lives of a coastal life.
Yeah, I think sometimes we think about the Beachcombers now, we roll our eyes a little bit, that it's kind of like schlocky or whatever. But I think it was very sincere and it was very wholesome. And I think there was things that we maybe forget that maybe it was a little bit ahead of their time, that on the show you had, you had Nick running a small business and, he was partnered with a First Nations man. And like these, these were, I think, almost subversive things to say sometimes in the 70s. And so I think there's a lot to be proud of with that show. And it's kind of too bad that there hasn't been some way to bring it back, I guess, and have like a second chapter in it, because I think that would be an interesting thing to see. I know sometimes locals roll their eyes at it a little bit. They're like, oh, move on from the Beachcombers. But we went for a coffee at the Black Bean the other day, which is Molly's Reach.
Molly's Reach, yeah.
And just sitting in there having a coffee, it just is a constant flood of people outside smiling and having their picture taken in front of Molly's Reach.
Yeah.
So even after, all these years, it is still something that people flock to. And it's young people that are out there. It's not just a bunch of old fossils out there doing it. I think that it has a reach far and wide. And I think it's something that the town can still be very much proud of.
The Beachcombers we were allowed to watch because it was a good, wholesome show, like you said.
Yeah.
But other shows were bad shows. But that one, when we were kids, we could watch that one.
There you go. Beachcombers was a pretty safe bet.
Yeah. Family show.
So kind of on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, as far as the tone and the era in which it happened, the show that is shot here now is called Murder in a Small Town.
Yeah.
And it kind of happens in Gibsons.
For the show, it's set in Washington.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Gibsons in Washington, the Sunshine Coast in Washington, and then a lot of these other towns that are on the Sunshine Coast also appear on the show, but as being in Washington.
Yeah.
And that's a story about a man that's the chief of police in the town of Gibsons, and he has a girlfriend, I guess fiance, maybe this next season, that is a librarian. And I think the mayor, she ended up being the mayor, didn't she, at the end of the season? And and he solves a murder every week on the show. And it's very different from what the Beachcombers was. The Beachcombers, you were fighting about whose log that was before you could, take it to get your bounty on it. And here they're catching psychopath serial killers that are teaching at the high school on Murder in a Small Town.
Yeah, it's ran for 2 seasons already in 2024 and 2025, and then they're setting up to shoot again in February of 2026.
So that's just around the corner for us right now.
Yeah.
So that's another one that it's interesting to watch, that especially that from being here. You had commented that you thought maybe they were making, the crew was making more of a choice to include more of the town in it.
Yeah, it seems like there's more aerial shots, drone shots of the town and area. And I mean, there's a lot of scenes that it's just inside the police department or it's inside buildings. But then when it's outside a little bit, we'll definitely recognize a lot of places like the library and whatever else and Molly's Reach again.
It's kind of a game for us that we watch and we're like, oh, where's what's this building? What's that supposed to be? What did they transform into the jail? Because they had to pick up a convict or something here once this season. And they just shot along the side of the high school, which is kind of, I guess, an industrial-looking building, and it could pass for a prison. So it's kind of fun for us to do that. I'm sure if you're not from Gibsons, maybe you don't care so much.
And when it's out in the woods, you're like, well, it could be a lot of trails out in the woods when stuff happens. But
there's other shows that we'll talk about, other movies, but I think the last of the big three would be the Hallmark movies.
Oh, and yeah.
I don't know that we've had many Hallmark movies here the last couple of years filmed, but for, 5 or 6 years, I think it was pretty constant that there was 1 or 2 of those productions every year here in Gibsons. Mm-hmm. And Gibsons never played Gibsons. it was always someplace in Washington. It was always someplace on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And it was, a small town that you went to escape the big city.
Yeah, we've probably had about 6 or 7 Hallmark movies over here over the years, and then even a lot of locals will be extras on that. We haven't bothered signing up, but we know quite a few people who have.
Yeah, well, and like we talked about with the Beachcombers and with Murder in a Small Town. I know people that were around, as do you, for the Beachcombers, were extras on the show, and now again when we watch Murder in a Small Town, we'll be like, oh, there's Frank or Bill or whoever.
They're on there for like 1 second.
Yeah, and we catch it right away. And the Hallmark movies, I think we had friends that were extras and backgrounds and that kind of thing. And sometimes they're only in it for 5 seconds, but it's still kind of a fun thing to watch.
So Amazing Race came through town. I guess we could mention that show. What was that, in 2024?
Yeah, Amazing Race came, and they were in Roberts Creek and then here in Gibsons.
And then in Seashelt as well.
Seashelt's what I'm thinking of, not Roberts Creek. And that was an interesting little thing to see.
Yep.
And it's always interesting to see your small town there being depicted so nicely. One where it was maybe depicted not so nicely was Needful Things, which was a horror movie, Stephen King story from 1993.
Oh, that's the year. Yeah.
That's the year.
They built a church at the Five Corners, and then at the end of the show, spoiler alert, they blow up the church.
That's right. So then that doesn't make it look like such a cute little seaside town. It's more of a creepy place that you probably wouldn't want to visit so much.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit of a time capsule, that movie, that you can watch and you can say, that there's that's a gas station on the corner that's not there anymore. And, you can pick things like that out. And and again, then I've got friends that they'll talk about, I drove the car in this scene. And
or the truck.
The truck, at the end. And so that's...
rewind that part.
To see if we could see my friend's face in the truck. And that I think was probably that's maybe the next biggest one, I'm guessing, after Beachcombers. One we watched the other day was The Last Mimzy.
Yeah, from 2007. It was kind of cute.
Yeah.
Some of the story kind of didn't come together well or whatever, but
it was kind of almost like E.T. or something.
Okay,
it was
a
little bit of a movie about kids having a special mission kind of thing. And it was cute. And I don't think I would have watched it unless we saw that it had been shot partly in Roberts Creek.
Yeah, so it was Roberts Creek Beach and the pier that was in there. That was it of the coast, as far as I know.
Well, and it looks like you could recognize it, like watching it. If you recognize
the beach,
the pier and the beach, you would recognize that for sure in the movie.
Yeah.
And apparently the cabin that they go to, that also was in Roberts Creek, but I couldn't pick out anything that made me think, it's at this point on the coast or anything like that.
Yeah.
But that's a cute kind of another little wholesome one that if you don't pick it apart too much, it's a fun watch.
Well, the cabin should be right on the beach, really, according to the scenes of it.
Yeah,
but it's just that we're not familiar with the houses right there.
Yeah, and it was shot 20 years ago.
Yeah,
or close to 20 years ago. So who even knows if that house is there anymore?
Some Roberts Creek local person can comment.
Yes,
that was our house.
I'm sure somebody in Roberts Creek knows.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
That was another one that Roberts Creek wasn't Roberts Creek. That it was supposed to be some getaway on an island off the coast of Washington.
Yeah,
and it didn't play itself there. And what else?
Charlie St. Cloud.
Charlie St. Cloud. I think that was a big deal at the time.
2010, that one there.
2010. So Gibsons was not Gibsons in that one. I think it was a made up town off the coast of Washington.
And the Pacific Northwest
or whatever. The Pacific Northwest.
And that one was a house in Hopkins for Charlie St. Cloud.
Okay, that's
more
right.
in that area.
Yeah.
And then there was lots of wood scenes too, because there was a cemetery in the woods or something.
And I think stuff in Lower Gibsons as well, if I'm remembering right.
Yeah. That one we watched a little while ago.
Yeah. That was another one that was kind of, it's different. It's kind of cute. Zac Efron, Kim Basinger was in it. Amanda Crew, who I think is, I always recognize her from Silicon Valley. And I think she's from Vancouver as well. So that was another cute one.
There's Death Do Us Part, which is a horror one from 2014 and it's supposedly shot around Half Moon Bay.
Yeah, and we didn't watch it because
it's a horror.
We're not horror people. But the IMDb entry says they name drop Half Moon Bay. Okay. So then I don't know if it actually takes place in Half Moon Bay.
Yeah, it looks like there's, kind of in passing coastal scenes of if you were in the area, you would recognize it probably.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of times they say, we'll make it Half Moon Bay, California or whatever. Yeah, so I don't know if it's supposed to be on the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah.
I think it was a Canadian production, so maybe it was Half Moon Bay.
Yeah.
So again, I'm sure somebody that's watched this has seen it and then you could leave us a note in the comment. Ones that were lesser, that it kind of Gibsons just popped up a little bit, or not even Gibsons, but specifically one building in Gibsons popped up.
The mansion in Langdale.
That's right. That's right. That popped up a couple times in different TV shows.
In the 100.
The 100, which was like a teen kind of science fiction drama kind of thing. The exterior shows up in the show, and it's conflicting reports whether or not the interior was on the show or not. But that was just for like seconds in one episode it showed up. And then the second one is the show Psych, which I think had a big audience for quite a few years. And then in the 6th season, they shot a full episode at the Langdale Mansion.
That was kind of funny. We watched it.
And the Langdale Mansion, it was supposed to be like a psychiatric institute for rich people. And they shot inside and outside, and it looked every inch a psychiatric hospital for rich people. It played the part very well.
When we were kind of looking at other movies that were shot on the Sunshine Coast, the Trap from 1966 came up, but that was shot on Bowen Island.
At first we were excited because at first it said it was Roberts Creek that it was shot in. And then when we dug up a little bit more on it, that it was, Bowen Island, which is still kind of neat, but I don't know enough about Bowen Island to be excited about what I see in the movie.
The 1966 movie.
Yeah. And so then I couldn't really get that excited enough to watch it. Did we miss anything? Is there a show that you like, or an episode of a show that you like that was shot here on the coast? And did we screw something up and you want to correct us about our movie trivia? Or maybe you were in one of these things, or you have a story to tell about it. We'd love to hear it. Leave us a note in the comments.
Sunshine, sunshine, sunshine. I think I found it now.